Okay, so let's begin the second part of week 2 lesson, which is about the establishment of this Bap-Banchan-Guk meal system in Korea, together with the development of a fermentation method. Early Joseon Dynasty tried to imitate and import the Chinese agricultural technology, and thanks to that, Koreans were able to produce more rice than previous dynasty. And at least for Yangban class who owns land, they were able to eat much more rice than before. Of course, for poor people who have little land, rice was still relatively rare, but at least for this Yangban class, they were eating rice quite frequently, and this Bap-Banchan-Guk meal system was established thanks to this increased rice production. And now, from that time on, this Bap-Banchan-Guk meal system would continue in Korean culinary culture. So, Bap-Banchan-Guk system is basically you have a bap, the steamed rice, which is a staple food, and then guk, which is a soup, and banchan side dishes. And in Neo-Confucian idea, actually people are not equal. In many other religions, especially religions like Christianity, because of the idea that every human being is created by God. And that gives us some basis of the sense of equality. Well, in this world, some people might belong higher class and some people might belong lower class, but at least we are all human beings created by God. So that basic idea gives some fundamental sense of equality among human beings. Well, not in Confucianism. So in Neo-Confucianism, human beings are not equal. And the reason why human beings are not equal is because some individuals work harder and smarter. Some others are lazy and maybe not working very hard. So in Confucianism, the goal of life is by cultivating your mind and possibly your body, you make yourself a perfect human being, which is called in Korean 군자 or in Chinese 준치. And now this is basically noble man. So everybody, when they are born, they might be more or less similar to each other, but depends on this individual's effort. Confucianism imagines that some people reach very high level of virtue and some others they don't. So that's how society is organized in hierarchical system. And for that reason, even this idea is well reflected in dinner table as well. So if you are higher being, then the number of your banchan will increase. So the king would have at least 12 side dishes, and the poor people may have 1 or 2 side dishes. In this photo, as you see, this photo was taken in late 19th century by Westerners, and he is getting his dinner, and on that small meal table, by the way, in Confucian, the manners, each man will have his own meal table. Okay? So if there are 2 people, there will be 2 small tables. 3 people, 3 small tables. Unlike today's modern Western dinner table, where a lot of people sit together, no, that didn't exist in Confucian Joseon Dynasty. So each individual, depending on their class and wealth, possibly that the number of banchan, the side dish, would be different. And there is also regulation that depending on your class, how many side dishes you can have. And that was the same in China. And of course, a Chinese emperor would have large number of side dishes. A lot of them, the emperor could not reach. But anyway, so it all depended on your class. As agriculture developed, and even in limited way, the transplantation technology was adopted by more farmers by late Joseon Dynasty. The amount of rice, the production increased, and agriculture generally developed further. And now this produced new culinary culture. The fermentation technology was developed as a preservation method. You have bumper crop in autumn. You have a lot of vegetables and turnips, radish, and so on, and you have to preserve them for winter when you can't really get anything from any agricultural products. And that also further developed in Joseon Dynasty. And today's doenjang, the soybean paste, and 간장, the soy sauce, and gochujang, the chili sauce, they all developed during this time further. They were there already, but they developed further. And particularly gochujang was a new invention because gochujang was available only after chili pepper reached to Korea in 18th century. So this now people's culinary life became more diverse and better in many regards, richer. Okay, so as you see in this image, the Koreans started to have a various fermentation method for not only vegetables or not only soybeans, but also fish and other things. So including 명란젓, or Japanese called mentaiko today, which they learned from Koreans later. And as agriculture developed further, some recipe books came out. And now that reflects how the banchan itself became more sophisticated. If it was a primitive society, you don't need recipe books, and your side dishes would have been very simple. But now it became more sophisticated. And that's why by the early and mid Joseon Dynasty, there appeared some new recipe books. And these recipe books were published in this period, and they show wide use of fermented sauces. So that's how we know that during the mid and late Joseon Dynasty, Koreans were heavily relying on fermentation method, and they used these skills for various things, not just to preserve food and fresh vegetables, but also to create new taste by making different bean paste, soybean paste, and later eventually gochujang, the chili bean paste. Now, as these new sauces were developed and invented, banchan became, of course, more sophisticated. And that's why, and also not only sophisticated, but also became more diverse. So people started to develop new side dishes here and there, and there was a need to convey this knowledge to either to the next generation or to other people. So that's why some recipe books began to appear in this period. So as this banchan developed, now it's time for us to move on to another banchan, which is bulgogi, the beef. And we will talk about the beef eating habit developed during Joseon Dynasty in our third session. All right, so that's the end of second session. And now if you have any questions or anything to want to talk about.
Yeah, I do have one question regarding your lecture week 2. So given the picture you've shown us, it seems that people in Joseon Dynasty period ate much more rice compared to the people in today in general. So while there is no big difference in amount of banchan, the amount of bap rice in the picture you've shown us looks quite massive. So is there any interesting historical records or data in regards to the eating habits of the Joseon people?
I see. That's a very good and interesting question. As a matter of fact, we don't have data. I mean, people didn't measure how much rice they ate and so on. However, from limited paintings and recordings here and there, we can say that probably Joseon Dynasty Koreans ate much more rice, at least than Japanese, and also modern Koreans. But we have to understand that for those people, there was no choco pie, no ramen also. So they had to rely on mostly that meal, and from which they should have enough energy to sustain themselves. And now, there are some historical records, especially in Japan, that during the Hideyoshi's war, Imjin-hweran, when Japanese troops invaded Korea, they observed the Korean soldiers and they realized that Korean soldiers were eating way more rice than Japanese troops. So there are some records that from Japanese perspective, Koreans were eating way more rice than Japanese. And another record I can tell you is a group of Korean fishermen from southern part of Korean peninsula. They stranded in Japanese shore. I believe it was a Shimane prefecture today. And so the local government rescued them and they kept them in their prefecture and they wrote letter to Edo because to their shogun and reporting that we have these people and what shall we do? And in doing so, they kept carefully what food they gave to the Koreans because later possibly they would be reimbursed from the shogunate for the spending that they made for this group of people. And according to that record, the Koreans were thankful to Japanese who rescued them, but they said, could you give us more rice? Because the amount was not enough and they were hungry. So now we have that record. So from this limited source of record, we can tell that at least from Japanese perspective, Koreans were big eater.
Yeah, I believe I seen the episode of the Fisherman Stories through my textbook. So
I see.
I think your answer might be a great chance to recap that memory when I was young. So yeah, it was very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And also what we need to understand is Japanese people in general, in Japan has a tradition that you don't eat full. Full, fill your stomach. So like a harahachibu, whatever that's, you fill your stomach only 80% of your fullness. So, but Koreans may not have that tradition, but Japanese had it. So anyway, from Japanese perspective, Koreans were eating more than Japanese.
Yeah.
Thank you for your attending this lecture, and we hope it was helpful. Thank you.